What's up? Welcome in. Hoge and Jahns with you with one more episode.
I feel like I'm already on summer break.
I was going to say before the summer hiatus, not forever. Didn't mean to scare you there. Just before we break for a little bit, couple weeks, few weeks, whatever it is, enjoy some time with our kids, and then say goodbye to them again until Valentine's Day. So yeah, we apologize in advance. We're going to take a couple weeks off, but trust me, we will recharge. We'll be ready to go. We're happy to be here today, and we're going to head into this break by asking or ponder what our lingering questions are for the Bears, the remaining questions going into this summer break. But before we get in there, happy Father's Day weekend, everybody. Happy U.S. Open weekend, more importantly to people like me who care more about that. Also, happy Father's Day / U.S. Open weekend to those that use those together to say, Sunday, I just need a damn day to myself. That's all I want. I just want to play golf, watch golf, go to bed. That's the perfect Father's Day.
Well, there's got to be some meals in there.
Oh, yeah, I got to eat. And maybe spend an hour with the kids because technically fathers, you need to have the kids to be a father. We get all that. But really, I think it should be a reward to just be away from your kids.
Yes. If you're a father looking to spend more time with his kids, like I'll have a baseball game that day, then I think I'm going to go eat a steak somewhere with my wife. I did want to mention our old friend Josh Cooper sent us this football fans or futurefans.com stuff. If you're looking for something to do with your kids, you got anything?
Yeah, hold that up in the middle of the camera. There you go.
Is that better?
Yeah.
You see it?
Yeah.
Futurefans.com. If you're looking to hang out with your kids, learn football with your kids, or have your kids learn football with you, that's something cool to do. Good Father's Day gift. For me, I will be spending it on the baseball diamond, hopefully with a win in 10U with my son. If they don't win, it's okay. It's a long year, but yeah, Father's Day. It's already here. Yeah. Father's Day is like once you hit Father's Day, you know, at that point in the off-season schedule, like I am good to go for a while. You know what I mean? Like the break comes in, I'm gonna get my R&R and points. I know you got to do your show, but I am gone. I am long gone.
I still have a break coming up from CHGO too, but yeah, it's a little bit different for me these days because we're still grinding through opponent previews and position previews and all the types of things you do in June and July before training camp starts. And it is honestly though, it's a helpful exercise, I hope, for all the listeners, but also quite frankly for us too. To just kind of forces you to pound all that information in your brain ahead of camp, so everybody feels prepared. So for those of you, while we're on this Hoge Jahns break, you can make sure you check out CHGO in the meantime, because we're going to keep the party going there. And I should tease that we have Bears rookie Austin Booker coming in studio today as we record this on Thursday. So depending on when you're listening to this, you can go back, check that out, whatever.
Are you going to ask him about his long legs?
Knowing our show and how we are probably way more comfortable than we should be talking about things that we probably shouldn't be talking about. Yes, I have a feeling that'll come up.
If you're curious about the backstory, Adam Hoge tried to phrase a question to Matt Eberflus, right?
No, this was to the Eric Washington.
Eric Washington about the long legs of Austin Booker, and it was funny.
You know, though, that's how coaches and scouts talk.
Yeah, I know it.
Like at some point in February or March, there was a conversation in that Bears draft room that sounded similar. I'm not saying it's okay or that makes my question any better or worse, but you know, it's stupid things scouts think of. It's stupid things that I think of.
All I'm hearing is that ZZ Top song. She's got legs and knows how to use them. Ever hear that song? Our old listeners know what I'm talking about.
No, I know that song. I'm struggling to come up with the jingle in my head.
You're
right
gonna
now.
make me. I'm not gonna sing it. That's what you're trying to get me to
But are
do.
you trying to say that Austin Booker's long legs and
She's
hopefully
got legs and she knows how to use
and he knows
them.
how
No?
to use them? Well,
No?
hopefully he knows how to sack quarterbacks, and we'll find that
That's
out.
the point.
Anyway, check that out on CHGO. In the meantime, you should be following us on Twitter. Our show account is at Hoge Jahns, and we'll keep some things going there throughout the next few weeks as well. Maybe throw some old clips or whatever to keep that going. So make sure you check that out. All our merch, HoganJahns.com. Speaking of Father's Day gifts, perfect place to go get some great golf polos and quarter zips, all that stuff that our friends at Obvious Shirts put together.
This
It's
is like the first time we're not wearing it in a long time.
I know.
I got my
But
athletic hoodie on.
high quality stuff. We're talking nice Adidas polos that'll hold up and are definitely worth the money, keep you cool out there on the golf course and things like that. So all that stuff is available at HoganJahns.com. There they are if you're watching on YouTube. I'll tell you what, that white one for me is getting a lot of use these days. I should be wearing it right now. All right, Johnsy, let's get into this. So we've seen a lot so far. We've seen what's been probably, I don't know if you would agree with this, but I would call the most fascinating and busiest offseason that you and I haven't experienced on this beat. But like in a good way, because we've also had off seasons where it's like you're shaking your head the whole time. So like there's a lot happening, but it's not necessarily great. And the stories are way more controversial. This just seems like, it's been a grind for everybody, but like a good grind. And it's pretty remarkable what Ryan Poles and his staff have done to kind of put this whole thing together. All that being said, I know I still have some lingering questions and some unanswered questions. So, it's not to like spin anything negatively here as we go into the summer break, but just like, hey, things have been really good, but these things still need to be answered before we can talk realistically about this Bears team getting over the hump.
Here's my first question. Who is snapping the football to Caleb Williams?
I'm glad you brought this up because that is my number one lingering question. Although I wasn't going to be quite as specific, just of all the things the Bears have done for Caleb Williams, is the interior of that offensive line good enough? I don't know. I partly don't know because the offensive line hasn't been in pads. I don't know what to make of Ryan Bates. I don't know what to make of Coleman Shelton. I don't know what to make of what the Bears have said about this situation because I'm pretty sure they traded for Ryan Bates with the intention of him being the starting center, even though he's been more of a guard. And yet some of the conversations that have been happening, including, and I wasn't in the conversation, but I know some other reporters were, including our guys at CSGO that brought this to my attention yesterday with Chris Morgan basically said it. It's like, so you were there. So yeah, it's a competition, right?
It's competition. The messaging has changed. It was Matt Eberflus who first suggested that it's now a competition. I want to feel like that was last week. And now you have the offensive line coach on the record calling it open competition. I'm with you. The idea was that Ryan Bates was your unquestioned. We're talking about questions, lingering question. He was like your unquestioned starter at center. That was the idea. That's what the Bears wanted. But now, I don't know if it's because Nate Davis hasn't practiced much, and that's another lingering question. But there seems to be some moving pieces on the inside of that offensive line, specifically at center and right guard.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Why? What could have possibly happened in May and June to have that messaging change? Because you find it hard to believe it's performance based when they're not wearing pads. There's very few snaps in OTAs that you would actually look at as being like, damn, that was a legitimate offensive lineman just getting beat by a defensive player. Like pads, no pads. I mean, it does happen, but there's just not a lot of it to be like, oh yeah, we're going to move our whole offensive line around before we even put pads on. It seems way more likely it has to do with either availability of the players in question or other players where they need to compensate. Or more likely, and I just don't know who you would even pin this on, is someone in there not knowing their assignments, not picking up on the offense, just not winning over the coaches. I mean, I know Chris Morgan's back, but there are a bunch of new coaches on that offense that, not to mention a front office and head coach that is now heavily, heavily invested in this quarterback. I don't know what to make of it right now.
Well,
I don't think we'll have answers till training camp.
There is a Rams connection between Shane Waldron and Coleman Shelton.
Mhm.
And maybe they're speaking the same language already, and that's helping them. But I do think some of it is a matter of availability. There's a big hole at right guard because Nate Davis just didn't practice much, and that's fine. Whatever, it's the offseason program. But even during mandatory minicamp, we saw different players at right guard. It just is what it is. I think that center spot and the right guard spot are both lingering questions have you going into the summer break.
And look, anybody listening to this podcast or CHGO all of last season knows, or really for the last couple of years, probably even more than that, knows how annoyed I've been with the center play. And so with that context, and I think a lot of fans feel the same way too. You know, as we sit here on June 13th and head into a summer break, I just can't say anything other than I'm underwhelmed with what that situation looks like here going into the preseason. And I don't necessarily think they're going to make more additions, but doesn't it make you slightly nervous? I mean, all these good things that they've done for Caleb Williams and almost everything I think has been, quite frankly, perfect, except for this one, because it's a big one. Who's snapping the damn ball? The center matters. It starts there. It's literally so, and they literally couldn't snap the ball last year at times. Those fundamental thing you have to do to start a football play in the National Football League, they struggled with. So maybe this is all fine. Maybe behind the scenes, they're good with everything. They don't care about Nate Davis practicing, at right guard, and they feel like they got two pretty decent centers. To this point, though, that seems like a leap. And I hope we're proven wrong on it come training camp. It's just for all these other good things, I can't get, it's almost daily. I'm like, yeah, but what about center?
I would say this. I didn't see many, if any, bad snaps.
Those snaps have been good.
Regardless of who was the center. I'm trying to go down my memory here. Because in the past, we have seen rookie quarterbacks fumble the ball.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah. There's been that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Going under center, having issues with taking a snap. I can't recall any bad snaps, botched snaps during the offseason program, at least in the practices that we were at. Not one.
No. Well, so that part's good. But I do think that is a fair top question going into the offseason. My next one, since you teed us off on that one, I'll do this one. Is just, again, I think it's fair, even if you're optimistic about it. But were Gervon Dexter Sr. and Zacch Pickens good draft picks?
I want to see them with their pads on. I know.
Yeah.
I want to say I saw some flashes, but they're all. I think it was like the middle of the second training camp or mini camp practice where you saw the defensive linemen just stop their rush. And I'm like, okay, like purposely slow themselves down. And Matt Eberflus mentioned it later in the week. And I'm fine with that. We talked about that a little bit last week. You have to do that to protect your quarterback. But I want to see him with his pads on. I want to see him in the preseason. Obviously, some optimism is there. I wonder if there's a free agent edition coming there late, like a pre-camp edition, that and pass rusher. But, yeah, you saw some flashes, I think. But again, it's hard to gauge, and I think it has to be a question mark, a lingering question going into camp because we just need to see more.
Yeah. And I feel like it's almost an identical question to what's going on in the interior of the offensive line. Could be fine. Maybe the pads go on and iron sharpens iron and Gervon Dexter and Ryan Bates are battling it out in camp and Zacch Pickens is in there making plays and it's a healthy battle and everything's fine. And Nate Davis is practicing. Let's start with that. But it seems like a little bit of an identical conversation. The thing that just makes me nervous about it is somebody that believes so much about building in the trenches. Like, I think we can all agree at this point that if there's one thing that ends up holding this team back this year from really taking a huge step forward and truly being, a competitor in the NFC North and in the NFC, wouldn't you agree that if we're having that conversation 5 months from now, we're probably talking about the play on the line of scrimmage?
Where it all starts.
Yeah.
Here's another lingering question for you in that regard. How about this? When are the Bears going to add more at pass rusher?
So, and that's really related, though, to I think what I was just talking about. Because as much as you want to get anxious, and probably Ryan Poles wants to get anxious to like really go all the way in and take advantage of all 4 years that you get on this rookie contract window with Caleb Williams, you still do have to pace yourself a little bit and understand that even if we are having that conversation I just brought up 5 months from now, where they're like, yeah, they were right on the cusp, but they didn't quite have enough inside. Well, you handle that next offseason. Use the resources and the draft picks, and they still have a ton of draft capital. And maybe it's a whole different conversation a year from now. And that would probably be okay. But to your point, it's got to be pretty tempting if you're sitting there in August going, damn, we are one more pass rusher away from being like winning the NFC North this year.
How about this? Would you rather sign an aging veteran who can give you maybe 5 to 6 sacks at best? Or do you gamble a little bit, play this out into the regular season, knowing you have Montez Sweat, knowing you have some young players coming up, and maybe use that second round pick for a trade for a younger Montez Sweat-like addition during the regular season?
So this is why Gervon Dexter matters so much. Because the
I guess this applies to 3 technique as well.
Well, that's what I mean, because it sounds great to be like, oh man, they did this Montez Sweat deal last year and just do that again. You got an extra second round pick, makes all sense in the world, except you had to pay the guy. And if you're getting anywhere close to the same quality in a trade, it's because you're trading for a player that's not going to get paid by that team and is looking for a new contract. So you're either doing it on a rental or you're committing that much more money to now a second pass rusher, which you could argue is maybe worth it. But you're starting to get in this territory where you do need to be smart about where you're putting all your resources and allocating all those resources financially. And that's why if Gervon Dexter just as a second-year player develops into a true 3 technique, you probably don't need to do that. You can probably live with $10 million to Yannick Ngakoue again. And actually it'd probably be less than
It'd
that.
be less than that, yeah.
It'd probably be like 8 tops. Because that's probably, if you're getting that penetration inside and they're also have to count for Sweat on the other side, you're getting one-on-ones over there. You might even be able to live with, I mean, we talked about it last week. Dom Rob looks different. Maybe something like that develops. So that's the ideal scenario. And that's why I still think you'd be patient with this. What does this all look like in camp when the pads go on? Then make your decision on what you still need to add.
What's your next question?
Well, at some point, the quarterback is still a lingering question in terms of some of the stuff we heard from Matt Eberflus yesterday. And I didn't really read it as some negative. I think Caleb Williams was right where he should be, if not actually ahead of schedule, because of the advantage the Bears had of him being the number one pick and knowing that he was going to be the number one pick and being able to give him a little bit more in the pre-draft process than maybe you would give a player not sure if they're drafting and spend the amount of time that they did with him. But you heard it from Caleb, you heard it from Flus yesterday. Like, what is his level of comfort with running the offense, spitting out the plays? Shane Waldron said they're throwing a ton at him, throwing a lot of plays at him. What can you handle? Because once you figure that out, what he can't handle, then you start to pull back if he can't handle it all. And that's a completely normal process. There's nothing wrong with it at all. But it's still a lingering question. It's still a question that I guarantee you those offensive coaches are going into their summer break here wondering about Caleb and probably checking in with him and texting with him and saying, hey, you working on this? How you feeling about this? Because there's got to be some level of anxiety of what this all looks like when they come back to House Hall in late July.
I would phrase it as, will the pre-snap problems continue? Will they persist? I don't think it's exclusive to Caleb Williams either. There's been multiple times where receivers, even including DJ Moore and Keenan Allen, went to the wrong side of the field and they had to be corrected. Where you see DJ like actually show some frustration because he got it wrong again. They're learning a new offense. Terminology is different. Their placement is a bit different. Yes, there are some similarities from Luke Getsy's offense, same tree, but it is different. It just is. I would like to see less of that. I would like to see those mix-ups decrease in number. I felt like there was 2 or 3 every single practice that we attended, whether it was Tyler Scott in the wrong place or Caleb Williams turning to Shane Waldron for a correction. We saw a few of that. Now, that's okay. That happens. But I would like to see the frequency of those mistakes decrease.
And I think some of that comes back to center too, right? If we're talking about cadence issues, if we're talking about, just being lined up properly and identifying the correct mic point, all those things that go into it, it's on the quarterback, but it's also on the center. It's on all of them together. And you do wonder if maybe that has something to do with this sudden open competition at center too.
I feel like the cadence stuff will sort itself out in time. I don't see it as much of a talking point as others. I know they're working on it because it's important to this offense and they want to use it as a weapon, but that will come in time because it's going to become so routine for Caleb Williams by the end of the day, right? I feel like it already is. To me, it's obviously there's some mix up with the receivers just in terms of which spots they're assigned to on any given play. You see that a lot. We saw it last year at times, actually, in games. We saw it in the past with players like Anthony Miller. Sometimes it just never clicks consistently enough. But I would like to see the frequency just completely decrease throughout training camp.
Do you have another question?
Lingering question? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. How about this one? Will Rome Odunze, how should I phrase this? Can he be the Bears' number 2 wide receiver by the end of training camp? I want something positive to talk about because I feel like we saw so much from him. And not so little of Keenan Allen because Keenan Allen's still Keenan Allen, but Rome Odunze is one hell of a player already. There's no denying that. And I'm just interested to see, well, how about this? How are they going to distribute that ball around? Because there's only one football and there's a lot of talent on that offense.
Yeah. Well, I think I will say this. I think there's a window where if we're just talking, hell, we could almost talk in fantasy points on this one.
Might be a great way to do it.
Like who's the Bears leader in fantasy points among those 3 wide receivers, man, it'd be hard pressed for you not to say DJ Moore. Just rookie wide receivers always, even the good ones. Justin Jefferson was such an outlier. The way that he just came in and wasn't like 1,400 yards right away. In
Jamar Chase.
Yeah, I think I had both of those guys as rookies. It was so glorious. And I guess that's an interesting way to think about it, because if I'm thinking about my fantasy draft, how in a hurry are you to get Rome Odunze right now when you know he's going to be competing for targets and he's working with a rookie quarterback? It's possible to be very, very bullish on Rome Odunze and also okay to pump the brakes at the same time. In just terms of like is 70 catches this year doable? I think so. I think it's doable because your point, I think he's that good. Is it likely? That seems like a stretch.
Well, you need the completion percentage to go up so you can move the ball a bit more, convert first downs. Justin Fields' completion percentage was in the bottom third, bottom 5 of the league. It wasn't good enough. If Caleb Williams get up to 65%, 66%, I mean, that's what, 4, 5, 6 more catches to be made. Sometimes that's an entire game for a receiver or a tight end. That matters. To your point about Jefferson, Chase and Jefferson both hit 1,400 yards as rookies.
Yeah. What if I told you, and let me get these exact numbers here, that at the end of this season, Rome Odunze has 63 catches, 628 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Would that be a disappointing rookie season?
Well, my follow-up would be, what does DJ Moore and Keenan Allen and Cole Kmet have?
Right. Because the reason I brought that up is because those are Jackson Smith and Jigba's numbers from last year.
Okay. As the third receiver in Seattle.
Yeah. So you have the comp of the offense, the system, Shane Waldron, the OC. You have DK Metcalf. And why am I completely blanking on the other wide receiver right now?
Tyler Lockett.
Tyler Lockett. Yeah, duh. So I'd take this Bears receiver group, but in a high-profile draft pick, and a guy that, going back to that interview that we had on CHGO with Jackson Smith and Jigba at the Super Bowl, obviously wasn't too thrilled with Shane Waldron as his OC. I'd like that. I'm okay with 63 catches. I guess I'd say 800 receiving yards sounds better to me.
So Tyler Lockett had 79 catches for 894. DK Metcalf had 66 catches for 1,114. And then you had Zach Charbonnet, 33 catches, 209 yards. And then you had the tight end Noah Fant. Just going through the other weapons.
Yeah.
32 catches, 414 yards. No touchdowns there. Geno Smith finished with more than 3,600 passing yards. So, yeah, I take it. I guess like if that's his rookie year, and you have Caleb Williams flirting with 3,700 passing yards, I think good things have happened for the Bears offense.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, that DK Metcalf, 66 catches but went over 1,000. Like, I could see that DJ Moore not leading the team in catches, but still having over 1,000 yards receiving
yards.
You know what I mean? So just a little bit more bang for your buck in terms of how much he's getting per catch, but getting most of the attention. perhaps the amount of completions to him is not the highest. So that's an interesting way to think about it. Those receiving comps with the Seahawks, just something to probably keep an eye on as the season goes along with how it's shaking out with the Bears at the same time.
Just how the ball is spread around.
Yeah.
My last lingering question before we go, I'll make it a two-parter. Is Matt Eberflus for real?
Mm-hmm.
And is his defense for real? They kind of work together there. But I think we're seeing a new Matt Eberflus. We've talked about this multiple times throughout this offseason. And we're seeing a new edge to this defense. Feels like 2018 a little bit. Like, are they both for real? And obviously they work hand in hand.
Yeah. I think that's an enormous lingering question that is good to throw in there right at the end to end this podcast. I do have one more, which was you had 13 players, I believe, practicing yesterday. Why not get the media involved in that? You needed bodies out there. and where would you have put, I mean, like let's get a Nicholas Moriano back there returning some punts.
It's been a long time. Like, I don't think they've ever done it. Like, I know other media, of course, have done this for their respective teams, but like fielding punts and having fun, catching passes.
Don't the Lions do that every year? I think they do. I think they have like a media combine.
We definitely have to sign some waivers.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, come on, you could put
the videos that you could produce of Mark Carman catching punts would be hilarious.
Yeah. A Torrey Taylor punt.
Yes, good luck.
I give him a 0% chance of catching it. 0.
There would be wagers.
No, it would be really fun to watch. I'm just feels like a missed opportunity there. All right, anything else before we head out?
No. If you're wondering when everything will get going again, circle July 19th and July 20th, everybody. Not just for, we'll be back before that, but that's when things really pick up for the Bears.
Yeah, you got a report day there in the first practice. Not the first practice open to fans, but you could start to feel it already. We were there yesterday. They were rolling in new sod. They were starting to put the bleachers together for training camp. So it'll be here before you know it. In the meantime, make sure you're following us on Twitter at Adam Hoge, at Adam Jahns, at Hoge Jahns, our show account. We'll try to show some, throw some things up there, in these next few weeks as well. HoganJahns.com for all your merch. Greatly appreciate all the support. As always, please hit that like button. Please subscribe on our YouTube page. In fact, there's your homework assignment. If you listen to this podcast, but you've never watched on YouTube, go to our YouTube channel, Hoge Jahns. Just hit subscribe for us, and vice versa. If you watch here on YouTube every week, every episode, but you don't subscribe on your phone as a podcast, please just go do that. Just helps grow the feeds. Spread the word. We'll be back, ready to go, rested, with what should be a very exciting Chicago Bears season. We'll talk to you in July.
See ya.